On Nationwide this evening, how a life on the ocean wave can mean the height of luxury. We meet and go on board one of the world's biggest liners as it pays a visit to Cobh. We visit the centre which tells the story of the Cobh area's maritime heritage, including being home to 7,000 American sailors. The story of Cobh Cathedral, which towers over the town, and how the area is drawing in more tourists to get those tills ringing. And you're very welcome to another edition of the programme. Today we're coming to you from Cobh in County Cork, and a fresh and even blustery day it is. Now, Cobh is a town built on a hill which sweeps down to the sea, and today it's dominated by one of the biggest luxury liners in the world, and later we will be going on board. Now, Cobh, you could say, is a town which has had several names down through the centuries. It started out as Cobh, C-O-V, then after a visit by Queen Victoria, it became Queenstown. Then came independence and the local council changed its name again back to Cobh, but this time in the Irish style, spelled C-O-B-H.
During the programme, we'll be taking a look at Cobh's history. We'll be discovering the interesting places there are to see around here, visiting St. Colman's Cathedral, which truly is magnificent, and we'll be finding out what it is that makes Cobh such a popular tourist destination all year round.
Summer breeze makes me feel fine, blowing through the jasmine in my mind.
Behind me here are the remains of the pier along which the passengers would have walked to board the tenders which took them out to the Titanic. This town is steeped in the history of that ship. Cobh was the last port of call for the RMS Titanic after she had embarked on her ill-fated maiden voyage on the 11th of April 1912. She called in here to pick up mail and also 123 passengers who are emigrating to the United States. And we've been taking a look at how the people of Cobh have been keeping the history of Titanic very much alive.
This is the last call for Ellis Island. These are the last words I'm ever going to hear you say. Goodbye, babe.
And you're all very, very welcome to Cobh. My name is Michael Martin. I'm the author and the creator of the tour. Thank you for coming along to do my tour. And you've come to a place that is an area of fascinating historical diversity. Well, I established the Titanic Trail guided walking tour in 1998, and it was as a result of two things really. I had been to Boston in the US and enjoyed thoroughly taking their Freedom Trail. In addition to that, I had become chairman of Cobh Tourism after coming out of the Navy, and there was a lot of people concerned that visitors were only coming as far as the Heritage Centre and not into the rest of the town. So I suggested a tour that would take people up and they could enjoy the history and the heritage of the town, and that's really where it began. At the time it was thought that it wouldn't work. People said to me it mightn't work, and here I am 11 years later, 25,000 copies of my little book sold, a DVD made, and taking thousands of people around each year. Folks are the same, you're walking in the same footsteps. Now folks, here we have the... Well, essentially what people find out when on this walking tour is the very, very diverse history that Cobh has, and it is really incredible. I mean, you had Phoenicians, Vikings, Celts, you had the British arriving, you had the American Navy here during the First World War, and you had the exiting of over a quarter of all convicts to Australia. So what this tour does is it gives people and enlightens them as to how all that history intermingled with each other, and much of the physical appearance of the town is as it was 200 years ago. So they really leave the tour having been enlightened and enthralled by the great diversity, and people like Americans find that there's a great link with their history through emigration and, you know, these ships that people know about, the Titanic and the Lusitania. So they go away enlightened from the tour. That's what they get from it. Okay, so this was the last terra firma that the Titanic passengers walked across before embarking on the fateful journey. Well, I think for them the highlights are seeing the actual anchorage where Titanic lasts, you know, anchored for the very last time. That's one of the things, and it brings it alive for them. They also see the Lusitania Memorial, which is known, you know, all around the world. St. Colman's Cathedral is probably the most dominant architectural feature in the entire harbour, and one that emigrants would have seen when they were leaving. You'd also have the Annie Moore statue, which is quite important for people if they're interested in emigration. And really, the entire town, its buildings, its streets, its piers, are a living embodiment of the history that was here before. So that's the highlight, really, for people when they come. Survivor, this is a photograph of her here. The original wooden dock appeared, and it shows a photograph of earlier on. And on the morning of April 11th, now we get a really good view of Spike Island out here, and this one little island in the middle of Cork Harbour reflects all the major themes of Irish history, from its monastic period to the period during which the Vikings came, to the arrival of the Normans, and right up to our struggle for independence. It was during the famine that it was opened first as a convict depot, where children, some as young as 12, were incarcerated there before being sent off to Australia and Van Diemen's Land. Over 700 bodies are buried in unmarked graves on the western side of the island, and efforts have been made, primarily by myself and others, to have this island designated as a World Heritage Site. It has more history on it than Alcatraz, Fort McHenry, Port Arthur and Robben Island put together. So hopefully someday it'll be a World Heritage Site and we can visit and film over there at some point in the future. Now folks, up in front of us here we have the magnificent St. Colman's Cathedral. They started to build it in 1868. It's French neo-Gothic in design, and the main stone is made of Dalkey blue granite. Now the cathedral spire is 300 feet tall, and it contains the Republic of Ireland's only carillon.
I have to say now, I've been fascinated for the last hour. It's been a huge insight into a whole part of this town that I had no idea there was so much. Like, I came along just to hear about the Titanic, but I got to hear about Spike Island, got to hear about the cathedral here. It was fascinating, and it's something I'd highly recommend to anyone.
Well, I thought it was fascinating because it brought you back from the earliest times, the time of the Phoenicians, right up to date, and with the Lusitania, the Titanic, and then the various buildings, and especially culminating in the cathedral. It was a fascinating view into Cobh and its history.
Oh, I thought it was very informative. Well, as a local, I was born and reared in the town of Cobh. My father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather all lived in Cobh, and I can honestly tell you that Michael has educated me today. With this tour, he has taught me things about the town that I never knew before, you know. So, very informative.
Gotcha.